Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Elena. Thank you for introduction. And we will try to make everything so you can wake up, and the first panel will be really exciting. So, we are partners of Wolf Summit, IC Corporate Accelerator, and actually we are running programs for Central, Eastern Europe, and Ukraine. And currently we prepare together a program called InnoBooster, for Hungary, Czech Republic, Poland, and Ukraine. And this panel is also an awareness session for our startups. There are hundreds of startups who are watching us online. So good morning to you and good morning to those who will watch and see us recording or just now. I'm really excited about this panel because we are speaking about Central Eastern Europe, about talents, about famous companies actually, that probably we all knew, but we never knew that they are from Eastern Europe. For instance, Grammarly and many more. Like WhatsApp had Ukrainian co-founder. And that's how we decided that it's really exciting to invite someone who has a region from that region and has a real success story. And second point, today we are speaking about something really big. So we are speaking about scale-ups and how to scale up, how to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And for that reason, I'm really, really excited about today's speaker. It's like probably the most expected one. I'm very humble, but really, really great traction and story. I am excited to invite here Vladyslav Yatsenko, co-founder and CTO of Revolut. Please give a round of applause. If it's comfortable. So our second speaker is on the way, so we will start and have fun. So I'll briefly tell about Revolut, and you make sure that it works, yes? So, or maybe we just ask.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. I guess Zoom is not
We wanted to just make sure who knows what is Revolut and who uses it. It's not enough, it's only 90% of the room. I mean, we see some failures in the room. So it's better, yes?
Okay.
Perfect.
Is it better? Okay.
So actually in 2021, Revolut became the most expensive startup in UK, yes, with a valuation of $33 billion. And now the company actually started from 2 people, as I know, yes? In 2014, probably. You just correct me if I'm making some numbers. And now it's like over 6,000 people all over the world. It's 40 countries. It's 25 million users. And how did you reach it, actually? Starting from small company and you survive, and how? What do you feel about it?
It's a long story. So, as you said, we launched in 2015. So it's been, what, eight years now, which, at some point we stopped counting. But of course, everything started from very small, just a couple of people, not fully knowing what is going to happen, I guess it's probably fairly typical story of most of startups that manage to grow big. There's no plan in the beginning how to get there, right? Or even to understand what is the potential, right? So for us as well, the initial plans when we were launching were quite modest, I would say. The first investment we were getting with a business plan of 30,000 users in first year. Of course, we thought we were going to be profitable as well after year one or break even.
And it happened after year 6, 7?
It happened when our first full profitable year was 21. It was for a reason as well, in the sense that we made some compromises on the way, but at the same time, what was important for us is not to just chase growth by all means, considering the industry we're in financial services, was important for us actually to build sustainable business, right? And when you look at in retrospect in the last few years, if you kind of start realizing, okay, that was really good good perception, kind of, that we decided to focus more on ensuring, that we have quality and we actually can be sustainable and so on.
We know when running parallels and running scale-ups and startups pretty much similar. You have to be agile all the time. So we are now extending a little bit, and one more speaker added to the stage. I want to introduce you Maria Barsuk. She is investment director at Tech Ventures EBRD, and EBRD actually the most active investor probably in Central Eastern Europe. They have portfolio of 31 companies already from all over the region, including Poland, Hungary, Belarus, Turkey, Ukraine, of course. And actually, Maria also has exciting experience because she was the person who helped one of the Ukrainian famous companies as Deposit Photos to scale up during their period, and then she knows everything about how they exited. And the company was acquired by a public company in Nasdaq, and actually now it's a huge group. So Maria, maybe we'll give you a couple words to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi everyone. I'm really sorry that I'm late a little bit. The weather is a little bit tough today. Anyway, I'm very happy to see everyone here. My name is Maria. I work for EBRD. It's a large international financial institution, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Annually, it invests in its region, which is 38 countries, including Central Eastern Europe, around 10 billion annually. And within this large organization that invests across all the sectors and economics, there is a venture capital arm, which is fairly small. It's now around $500 million. And we are investing out of our third fund. And yes, as Elena mentioned, we have 31 portfolio companies. A lot of them are from CE region. In fact, like more than half. And the rest are coming from some countries in Northern Africa and Turkey. And also, so we would like to think about ourselves as from the ones that provide growth capital from Central Europe to Central Asia, because we also include like some countries in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and so on. So, and I work there for like the last 5 years, so I have a pretty good kind of understanding of what is going on in the ecosystem in Eastern Europe in particular. And I'm originally from Ukraine also.
Actually, yes, the remarkable thing that all our speakers here from Ukraine, and I believe it's also deserve a round of applause. As I told in the beginning, we wanted to show you successful stories, actually, what's coming from the region. So, as we know that scaling up is quite a different, difficult process when many startups and scale-ups die. And what made you resilient? And then, Masha, you will tell what actually, how you see the point when you support scale-ups. So, Vlad, in which respect Revolut is different? I mean, because you are in a really difficult sector in fintech, but you managed to scale up and you actually have plans to conquer the world, right? To go to Japan, to go to United States, Eastern Europe already covered.
Sure, yeah. Good question. I mean, I guess the foundation, I would say, that should be common to kind of any company. You have to go through a period of struggle. I don't believe the company.
I think the whole life is struggle. When we have some pleasant moments.
If everything goes according to plan, most probably the plan is not maybe ambitious enough. Right, and it's one kind of the mantras as well that we have. That was one, and of course in that becomes a test essentially, right? To founders, to people in the company, for the company itself, whether you can persevere right through the struggle. I think. Yeah, we had enough of those moments, I would say, where we had to learn fast, we had to adapt fast. One thing that I would say the big learning from that is ensuring that you control your own destiny, essentially, right? It's like any kind of reliance on third-party vendors, partners, anything, you learn quickly basics of risk management and concentration risk, right?
So basically you develop whatever you can yourself.
For us it was important to actually, not to have dependencies on single vendor. I'll give you even simple example. We partner when we talk about one of the key things of our product is the card, really card itself, right? It was important for us to partner with both MasterCard and Visa eventually, right? Because it creates resilience for the business. You are in a better position. You have opportunity to push your vendors as well to support you in your growth. Like for us, especially when we do have few vendors, like they're part of the ecosystem in a way. So you cannot just say, no, we're gonna do it completely by ourselves, not in our industry. But otherwise, I guess there's a lot of other aspects here, but persevering
coming back to geography, you are now almost everywhere except Africa, right? So, and what is the regions?
Continents-wise,
continents-wise,
yes, yeah.
And Asia, you also covered?
Almost. So, yeah. So we are. So the whole EEA plus UK now, right? It's not part. You have to remember that. Then we have in Asia, starting in Singapore. We're in Japan. We're in Australia. Soon in New Zealand. We're in the US. Soon in Latin America. So it's kind of I mean, through all this growth, you realize as well.
So as I told, ambitions of the company is to be everywhere
eventually,
except for penguins,
the ambition
right?
is to be everywhere. It's possible. I think we had a lot of learnings through the process. Again, we thought expansion was going to be easy. Some 4-5 years ago, we at the time thought, let's try to launch everywhere, right? And then we realized that environments are different in different markets, regulation is a different level, licensing regime is different. So there's complexity that then you learn in the process, and we changed our expansion approach several times over the years. By learning after every launch in every new country.
And probably there is something special about Revolut culture itself, so that you are so adaptable to all other national cultures. Because you mentioned that there is something special in Google culture and there is something special in your company's culture. Except for get shit done. I mean, really.
I guess when we talk about values that we also publish on our website, it's one thing that it was important for us to make sure as we grow that the culture doesn't get diluted. We went through a phase when we get dilution of culture in the company, when there was more people, new joiners coming. There were more of them than people in the company, and you get naturally dilution at that point. And then we had to go through the phase of readjusting, making sure communication is super clear of our values, what they actually mean. We have how many? So we have these values around being, getting shit done, never settling, thinking deeper. Another one is dream team and wow factor. Like one of the questions often new people especially would ask is like, which one is more important than the other, right? In terms of what we should do when we do something, right? And the answer is all of them are equally important, right? It's like it's harder when there are multiple dimensions, but it's like it's nature of a business as well. We have multiple dimensions, and this is how we also stand out from other players in financial services, because we have complexity all around, geographically doing things in many geographies at the same time, product scope, going to many products. But then if you learn through that if you are not afraid of the complexity, right, and you realize a lot of complexity can be made simple, right, within Go, and all those different aspects in our culture as well are important because of that. Like, it's not just one thing. You cannot just say, we're gonna get stuff done, and then we'll fix it later, right? It's not. Some people have perception that we grow fast, and that's why our mentality must be like Facebook, break fast, right?
But you fintech, the financial services,
exactly.
it doesn't sound good, when you have accounts of the people and you break fast.
And you have to realize that, but you have, at the same time, it doesn't stop us to think actually how we can do things at pace, right, and with the right result in the end, right, and with the quality. So it's part of it, and it's like you cannot typical also, a question I would ask through interviews, how people perceive, speed versus quality. And, typical thinking, you can do, you have to compromise. You can do only one or the other, right? It's because it's, easier to make that choice and just forget about the other thing. But in reality, those things, they're not opposite, right? Especially if you put things on a timeline, like you realize it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem, but you realize that if you invest in both, they start supporting each other, right? And it's making sure that these two things, your speed and quality, they basically converge and support each other.
Results,
right?
Actually.
Exactly. I don't know if, I've said a lot of things.
No, but it's exciting to know how you feel inside. And do you feel really great now, when you see all these tractions that you've done, from 2 people to 40 countries or 50? Do you feel something?
There were moments when usually you don't feel it in the process because things just happening. It's I like this analogy. It's like watching your own child grow. You don't see that, right? But when you look at someone else's child, after why are they so big? When did this happen, right? When you are involved very closely, that you don't see that. You have to stop. Sometimes it's when people from outside remind you about that, and then you stop and you think, okay,
remind you who you are.
what happened, and putting it into perspective. Yeah.
Thanks. Maria, can you just give us your favorite stories of scale-ups from Eastern Europe? Several maybe names and some brief information. Why there some particular, or why they're so dear to you? Because you actually invest in quite early stage, and then you see them grow into unicorns or even bigger. Some that we know.
Well, I think among scale-ups from Eastern Europe, there are the companies that I like that we managed to invest in, and there are also the ones that we didn't manage to invest for various reasons, right?
Maybe.
And for example,
also interesting.
For example, Revolut even.
They escaped, right?
One of these stories that we didn't invest. So I will speak a little bit about the ones that we did invest. So the first one probably is one of the most famous companies in Poland. It's Doc Planner. It's started from a doctor booking platform and eventually became also a multinational business across all over the world. And it acquired, even though maybe not really officially, but unofficially, a unicorn status at some point. And we invested at them actually not myself, but my team early in 2000, I think 14. So we were one of the first investors there, along with the other like early stage funds in Eastern Europe. And now it's a great story, not only because it's a great business that is growing and has all the beautiful like financial KPIs and amazing investors on board at this point, but also because their mission, you know, to like to democratize and to improve the access to the healthcare of people is also quite remarkable. So, and we are kind of very proud of being partners with them. There is other, like most of our companies are scale-ups at this stage because like we invest usually from Series A and onwards, and so they are becoming like eventually like with the already over like around 10 million in revenue and up, so we can consider them as a scale-ups. And I think another one is can be great example, Deposit Photos, one of my favorite like companies, simply because I started when it was like really small. I was one of the first employees, and then eventually it went into something really nice and big, but of course not as huge as like a multi-billion-dollar company. Yet it was a very successful exit for investors and for the team, and also, I think it's a very good example. We also have a couple of unicorns in our portfolio, like from Belarus, PandaDoc and Mikita Mikado. Everybody like knows him, I guess, in our region and in the industry as one of the greatest founders. We were also able to support him from the very beginning. And another one, which is not maybe quite from the Eastern Europe, but like in our region, it's Armenian company PixArt, which was also founded to provide like a safe space for children and teenagers to share their like creative content, like on the opposite, like for example, to Instagram, and it also grew in a very big business at this point. So yeah, there are definitely like even in our portfolio, there are definitely like very interesting like scale-ups. But also in the region, like I think everybody knows one of the most one of the greatest stories from Romania. The company is called UiPath. They started like as a robotic process automation company, and they IPO'd, I think, at 40 billion valuation. So even Revolut has to grow to it at this point. Yeah, so we at that point EBRD didn't fully launch yet the program, but of course our team was aware of this amazing company. Yet they went with eventually they of course were noticeable also by the large investors in Europe and in the world, and I think Excel was one of the first investors, and they were part of their journey from the beginning until IPO. Yeah.
I think you should be safe including Armenia in Eastern Europe.
Sorry?
You should be safe including Armenia in Eastern Europe, because the borders just go somewhere around there, right?
Yeah.
So we will now have a question battle. You know, like to create chemistry between scale-ups and actually investor. So you, Vlad, should answer the question. How do you choose your investors, whom you accept as investor or no? And then the opposite question to Maria, how you see to invest or not to invest in scale-up. So how you see each other? So Vlad, you're first.
Sure. Maybe
And
can I add something to your previous question, because I realized was an important point that I forgot to mention is about how you succeed, how you become resilient is important thing, and this is again maybe relevant for the audience here is that founders and senior management of the company have to be hands-on. Like it's a key thing. Like you cannot expect a company who just expect to hire a team of people and that will happen, right? And they will execute the plan perfectly, right? Because no one ever has perfect plan, and this human factor in itself, right? It's like expecting humans to do something perfectly. None of us is perfect, but everyone has to be hands-on. I think it's key for any company to succeed, and again, it's part of like in terms of culture, it's key for us as well. It's
hands-on. How many hours per day? Like 18 hours
right?
hands-on. Do you have work like
by hands-on?
balance?
What I mean is like you need to understand everything. You may not be I would not be coding on a daily basis, right? But when
But do you actually code still?
Very rarely, yes.
But still,
very
yes.
rarely.
So I mean, it's already deserve attention because I mean, the co-founder of a multi-billion company does the work himself, you know.
It's more about understanding what is happening, and because then it translates into as well how you build a team, whom you hire. One of the lessons for me was to hire slowly and fire fast. Right, it's
useful. Can you make a note?
I would say
hire slowly, fire fast.
Key lesson.
So, and coming back to those provocative questions, how do you know if you want to work with investor or no? Did you ever kicked out some investors or said no? Just tell your story with investors. How you select investors, and Maria, how you select scale-ups. I just want to see where this chemistry comes from. Where is this moment?
It would different for different companies, for different engineers. It depends on your specific situation. I don't think there's like a single answer. For example, someone could be in very good position that investors are just coming themselves and just want to give the money. Right, because of the current market, because you're doing something hot and so on, you have less problem there. You need to then look more specific. What else do you get from those investors, right? Instead of just money, and there, I'll be focusing on people who actually build businesses in your or related area, or in general build successful businesses, right? So they can share some wisdom with you when you have when you struggle, right, and so on, because they went through, they understand it. And yeah, as I said, it depends on your situations. Other cases, people who maybe do something that is completely new, and you may have hard time convincing others that that what your dream there is you can make it happen, and maybe the money is what is blocking you, right? You may be accepting the money and looking for an investor maybe who is not very much involved, right? Who is happy to invest and lets you do the thing, right? So this is how I would look at it.
But did you guys refuse many investors who approached you and wanted to participate in a round?
I'm sure it changes well over time, right? The first investment was not that easy. Like we said, we're gonna build this thing, and when we had our first investment, we were at the point before launching beta. So we went already through integrating at the time with main vendors, like the main functionality, like we had to learn a lot of things. So there was some proof already in the pudding, but it was not easy, just going and convincing people, because one maybe interesting fact, some people who were experts in the industry, in card payments specifically, were saying what we want to do with our multi-currency card that gives you spot rate at point of transaction. Dynamically, that is not possible, right? Because of how things work. They know too much about how it's done now, and they say this is not possible what you want to do, right? So, but it's more about understanding more and then actually, figuring out how you can actually, in the end, make it happen. Like most of the time, technical problems are not a blocker, right? There's always a solution, right?
Thanks. Maria, and how do you see and chose your scale-ups? How do you know whether to invest or no, or whether there are some signs that it will be bad scale-up and you refuse to invest?
Well, we have we have our own strategy, right? And we have a thesis according to which we invest. And the first and foremost is just region. So we invest only in the companies which have a substantial R&D presence in the countries of EBRD operation. It includes obviously Eastern Europe. And from then, as we say that it's Series A, like from, I don't know, from some technical perspective, like there is like this usual external factors which are considered, like how big is the market, then the KPIs of the company. They also have to be already like having some clients, having some revenue. They have to have some channels through which they acquire this revenue, like how scalable these channels are, VSS and etc. So there is also like the technology angle, how strong is technology, and so on. But the most,
are there any stories when you regret that you didn't invest?
Sorry?
Are there any stories that you regret that you didn't invest in the right time and they just grow up and you guys just...
You know,
didn't participate?
to tell the truth, like right now with the coming crisis, no, but maybe in 2021, there were some companies that we were thinking that it's a shame that we didn't invest eventually. Now it's like now when the market is becoming more like coming into balance, let's put it this way, or going into the crisis, you kind of understand that maybe it's okay that you didn't invest in some of the companies. But I think that the greatest regrets were coming in 2021. So really, we have to understand that the investment story, like the whole, like it's a long story. Like it's a long shot in venture capital. Like it's very rarely that you can make money very quick, like which you could do like maybe in 2020 and 2022, right? Usually it's like at least 7 years. Like if you managed to make some money before 7-year horizon, it's like very good, you know. So you have to really think very long term, and also as I didn't finish to my last factor about the criteria of the investment, it's the team, and it's the ability of the team to execute, the ability of the team to adapt, the ability of the team to deal with complexities. So basically all the aspects that Vlad mentioned to show the resilience, because indeed it's a long journey. And like if you look at most of the startups who kind of started and ended up like in APO or like successful exit, like multi-billion exit, it's at least 10 years journey, maybe even more. So you have to be like prepared for this, and therefore you have to be, the team should be the one that is thinking long term and is able to execute in the long term process, and no matter what the stage of the cycle in the economy is right now. So yeah. So right now, no.
No regrets.
Yeah.
So we hope you will...
To be honest, on long term, again, I would put it on the timeline of the company, right? Depending where the company is. Having long-term strategy in the very beginning, I would be questioning that.
Yes.
Because, things changing in the last few years, like the world is just going like this up and down, right? It's like things that no one planned for, and like as I said, many companies just disappeared, right?
Yes, I agree.
Some flourished because by luck in reality, right? So it's like, but you cannot have this embedded in your long-term plan. No one does,
but
right?
you can have a long-term plan to adapt and to be to adjust to the circumstances that come into, rather than you have a long-term plan, like, you know, to, I don't know, just to do what you did before, for example, right? So
for sure, yes.
So it depends. It also can be a strategy, right? It doesn't have to be like just one thing. Mm-hmm.
I'm saying this because sometimes I hear some people who are just starting the very early stage, and they just talk about their, ambition to conquer the world, valuations that they want to see, etc. How do you know this will happen? Like this, when you're just starting, like you haven't achieved your the first more modest milestones yet, right? Which you should be then focusing at that point, right? Short term always will bring the long term eventually, right?
Yes, yes. But still, you have to have a vision. You know what you're going to do, because there is often founders also on the contrary to what to your example, there is example. For example, some founder can kind of be okay with his 5 million revenue, you know, and become profitable, and then he's very comfortable with this, and he doesn't want to grow anymore, you know, and he's okay. And then the investors find themselves like investors in a good company, but for venture capital specifically, this is not a good case, because it doesn't produce like the big upside. Because when investors are coming in, especially at an early stage, they need to see that there is like at least like, I don't know, 10x, I don't know, or it depends on the stage, but like you cannot think like, okay, we will even like triple the money and it's okay, because we need to triple the money to be a good fund on the whole fund, and we know that like 80-90% of the companies will not generate the returns, so that's why you always have to have this thinking of you have to have high expectations towards the company when you enter. Even though, of course, the team should be adaptable, because like even COVID, you know, we had some companies that were in travel industry, in restaurant industry. At one day, there was like 0 orders, 0 revenue. And yeah, they survived, I have to say, but it wasn't easy times. And how do you adapt in this situation, you know, when you're all kind of business model is built on the market that completely shut down, right? So that's when this adaptability and dealing with the complex problems is coming into, and you need to see, maybe in the beginning somehow you need to figure out whether this team is able to deal with such things or not, you know, and that's I guess what every investor wants to find out in the beginning, you know, and it's very difficult, of course.
Look at the projection of, you know, like one way to look at it is to see it, because eventually it's a step function, right, of growth. Mm-hmm. Is that some people maybe get to step and they plateau, and like either they have to be pushed to figure out, like there has to be ambition and find what is that next step, to climb on that step, or there are external factors also that push that, right? Like for example, the market demand itself. Like if you hit the great market product market fit. Again, for us, it was in early days. I guess when we started, we didn't have this ambition to, like, we didn't know we were going to do all of these things that we're doing now. I mean, we realized fairly soon the potential, but still, like, we focused on solving problem of effects, right? Mm-hmm. Making sure it's super easy. Like, you don't have to think where do you exchange money when I travel, and you just send someone. It's just easy. Like, that's what you do these days, right? I think that what we did eventually, like what we revolutionized, is effects for consumers, same as Uber did for transportation. In a way, you don't think about taxi, how it works in every city you go to. You just open the app, press the button. You don't need to know the local language and so on. You know the price, you go. Same thing with effects, or with effects, right? But it kind of, you know, step function. But because there was a lot of demand for us. We had a period when we struggled with the demand, right? Mm-hmm. And that pushed us to the next step faster, right? Like there are these combinations of ourselves, and I look at it, and at scale-ups, how many different steps, you know, they went through to see the, you know, and then you extrapolate, you know, further from that.
Yeah, I think also it's important for the founders, like, and for the founding team to grow with the company, and if they don't want, for example, continue to grow with the company, when to step out, like in the sense that, like, to hire maybe professional management as a company becomes a corporation, you know, or be able to kind of continue to adapt. And this is something that is also important for the company to go into the next level. So, guys, you basically answered the questions that I wanted to pose. What would you advise for scale-ups? And you already elaborated many solutions and advice. But there is another question. Coming back to our national background, according to Stanford research, Ukrainian ecosystem is in top 10 ecosystem who produces founders of unicorns. Mm-hmm. As the question is, why Ukrainians succeed in tech world globally, and what do you think about it? I think, first of all, of course, we had a very strong technical like background and like a lot of universities which generated and produced talent. But it also came out of necessity, and it came out of the out of challenges that are coming in the country where you kind of it's difficult to build the business that is asset-based business, because there is a lot of risks that these assets will simply like disappear at some point from your property, you know. Therefore, like, or it's like based on some on a certain kind of, I don't know, schemes or etc. So what you can do is you can work with your brain, right? Because something that is inside your brain probably will not be taken, at least yet, right? We don't know what Elon Musk with his new chips will invent, but at this point, like, you cannot take away. So this intellectual workforce was something that was strongly like present in Ukraine and also in other Eastern European countries. And from that, we had this story of the great success of the outsourcing companies. But eventually, with the travel, with education, with exchange of the experiences, many people that were very experienced in the software, like in outsourcing businesses, they decided that they want to build their own products, try to build their own products. And so from that, they kind of tried that, and they succeeded eventually. Like, but it's a great. So we have a great people, resilient, great, very intellectually strong and educated and smart people. But the problem remains in Ukraine, and after the war as well, is that still most of these companies are not registered in Ukraine. Most of these companies are registered in jurisdictions that have more favorable conditions for doing business. And that's what our country should work on a lot.
I understood that it's typical for Central Eastern Europe to be registered somewhere else. So,
well, in Poland, not necessarily, I would say. For example, we have companies that they do have presence in the United States because of the clients, but not because of the IP rights. Unfortunately, like in Ukraine, one of the major is not. Of course, clients make sense because US is the largest market, like European Union is the largest market, but the problem is the IP rights protection and also protection of the investor rights, right? So this is two main reasons why not in Ukraine. And in Poland, for example, the situation is different in this sense, and you can have a company in Poland, and so Ukraine has a lot of things to work on in this area.
And what do you think, Vlad, about the Ukrainian tech community? I mean, the question was why Ukrainians succeed in tech globally.
So you mean as company founders?
As a company founders, or maybe as also like industry, and like any type of.
Yes, just to add what Maria said, I mean, that, and I'll speak a bit from my experience. So I left Ukraine just right after graduation, and my experience was just working there, you know, while studying computer science. At the time, there was no opportunity for me, literally. When I looked at companies I wanted to work for, it was outsourcing only. And it's still, like, the market itself doesn't, I mean, current situation, of course, it's horrible completely, like, maybe we disregard that, but in general, like, the market is not mature for people to have opportunities to execute for two reasons. Generally, there's a lot of opportunity, right? It's you know, great, you know, you don't have to go and look for problems, like there's so much to do there. It's not that competitive, right? Like a lot of companies, they just, you know, the industries are not touched at all, right? But at the same time, what is different is, so that uncertainty and, you know, a lot of opportunity is great for, let's I would say, gives the kind of growth push to talent, to individuals. They like, this is math. You learn certain skills of being adaptable, flexible, you know, street smart, right? Those things that help you then, you know, do better in environment where things are sort of more stable in a way, right? Compared to people who grew in an environment that is stable and like they take things for granted. They, you know, they're just comfortable, right? These people who come out of the not comfortable environments, it's easier for them to flourish, I would say. But the key thing, like for Ukraine specifically, I think what would be like the main thing that would catapult it, I think, with all the talent that is there, that happened to be, you know, through all these factors, is that like, you know, expectations. What should be stable is, you know, expectations towards the legal system, right? As you said, like IP rights, etc. You don't want to be, you know, doing some business and, you know, being prepared that, you know, for some random thing, you know, you will have to kill it, right, at some point, or whatever. So that thing, I would say, you know, when people, like for me as well, was when people in the past would ask me, would you come back to Ukraine? At the time, my answer was no, because of that reason, right? Corruption is the worst thing that happens to any economy, right? And that's what kind of, to me, the smaller corruption, I believe, exists everywhere, but it's like still, if there is trust to the legal system, you can do business, right?
So guys, do you feel like take a couple questions from the audience? Huh?
Sure.
Do you guys have questions? It's a unique opportunity to ask something intimate.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I just want to ask Vlad real quick. So my name is Florian. I come from Romania also, well, Eastern Europe also. And Revolut is there everywhere. You guys were very successful there, it seems. So congratulations for that. And my question is, where do you see the future going in your line of business? And do you consider current banks as your competitors, or maybe more companies such as Google, Apple, so on, that are going to be your strongest competitor in the future? Or is there market for everybody? You're all going to complete each other, or, you know, something's going to have to give? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Good question. First of all, when you said you're also from Romania, funny fact, often in London, Romanians think I'm Romanian when they hear my name. So that's normal. And you know, to your question, there's no a simple answer. You know, those are just competitors. With banking, of course, within the industry, within banking, would compete directly for customers, right? Because just fundamentally, a lot of our customers, are they the new customers who have opened their first accounts, or a lot of customers who actually, you know, come from other banks, right? So obviously there's competition there, but at the same time we partner with banks, right? So it's an ecosystem. It's important to understand, right? It's at the end it's customer's choice, right? It's like, and you know, if we do a much better product, customers will come to us. If we address the needs that other players in the market don't address, customers will come to us, right? And then on the big techs, that's been in the last several years probably one of these big questions for regulators as well. That's how everyone is what Google with the you know, the mobile payments and Apple and so on. What's going to happen? For us, these companies are partners in the first place because we work with them, right? We like specifically on payments side, like they're part of ecosystem, but they're I mean, if you look, you know, since this war is started, you know, how many maybe 4 or 5 years ago, what happened? Right? they didn't start acquiring licenses. They partner with customers, and what they do, they build some ecosystem infrastructure to support, have financial services as their customers rather, right? Instead of competing with them. So for us, those companies are partners, especially considering the global kind of presence, right? It's fully aligned with kind of our ambition. So yeah.
So maybe one more.
But maybe interesting fact as well, how us being more sort of nimble than those big tech companies is like sometimes we push them to do what they didn't do before. Right? Maybe an interesting fact for you is when we were launching Apple Pay in Europe. At the time, yeah, we had presence mostly in Europe, and Apple's approach was kind of slow, country by country, take one bank, then to the next one, etc. We said we want to launch everywhere at once, and we had to convince them to adopt and actually do that, right? Well, it was not that easy. As you know how Apple operates, they're fairly risk averse. I mean, and for a reason, right? So they have big brands to maintain. So.
Thank you for the discussion so far. I think because of your Ukrainian background, still many founders, especially in our part of the world, I'm based in Bulgaria, but I do have an overview of the whole ecosystem in Central and Eastern Europe. I think they would relate to you. And one of the big challenges that we see in Central and Eastern Europe is exactly that moment where you have built a product, you already have a product market fit, but very many founders actually are challenged by the scaling part, so crossing the chasm on the other side, exporting the product also to other markets. What would be your advice? My name is Elena. I'm co-founder of The Recursive, which is the media covering Central and Eastern Europe, startup-wise, innovation-wise, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Sorry, so the question is, what is the advice for them to scale outside of the local market?
Yeah, having in mind that you would address, in this case, founders who are based exactly in Eastern Europe. I think, in a way, because we haven't been in an environment that created many unicorns, we still don't see the full cycle of building a company from scratch until to the point where we IPO or it's a global company like Revolut. So the moment of scaling is a real valley of that for most of the startups coming from our region.
You said probably the factor, getting to that scale is the just size of the market, right? In the first place, so you have to go somewhere else. So for us, it was easier because we started in the UK. Like there's a lot of benefit from it for us as well, right? I'm sure if we started, in Romania, where we have big presence, we would solve the problem there, but I would say potentially would struggle a bit as well. But looking at it, from a perspective of what we advise in terms of doing that, I mean, you have to find what that expansion means. Like there should be something that you would go and naturally, we'll be solving a problem, right? You start with a problem, not just I want to be to get to 1 billion valuation, and that's why I need to go to bigger market. Like you need to understand, is there the problem that you're solving, right? Or maybe then expand, horizontally. What are the adjacent products that you can build?
What about the mindset?
The mindset is, and to me, comes to things that I said earlier. But it starts with the problem. Like you need to be able to see the problem and you're wanting to solve it. Right? This is how I think about it. If you're looking again driven just pure by growth numbers, valuation numbers, I don't think that will give you the answers You have to see the problem that you want to solve, and then you start, okay, how big that problem is, right? Is it worth solving, spending all that effort, you know, risking, because there will be uncertainty for sure, and starting from there, right? Problem first.
Monica, do we have opportunity for one more question, or we should wrap up? How is timing? So so far we had pretty much substantial discussion, and we did our best to deliver the best. So that's the last one, and we wrap up.
Good morning. I'm Sorin. I'm coming also from Romania, and actually I have a comment in regard what you asked earlier about the Ukrainian people and why do they have the tendency to become or to found unicorns and so on. And I think it's a common character in the region, in the Southeast Europe, and it's a halfway trauma of the hunger of the late 80s and early 90s of the political regime and so on, which somehow combined with the social and educational, social constraints and educational system put us in the position of being predisposed to hyperachievement. Now I have a question for Ms. Barsuk. My question is the following. Normally, I learned in my corporate years that you set up budgets, you set up plans for minimum 3 years and milestone and so on. And you have the same thing when you invest in a company. What is the reason, or what are the top 3 reasons / danger that founders and managers in these companies lose the sight of these milestones and become, let's say, comfortable in a low, medium, EBIT positive area? Thank you.
What are the reasons? Well, there are different reasons, but I guess the main reason is the feeling of of the comfort and not willing to go out of the comfort zone eventually. So I guess this is the one main reason, and then you can divide it into different aspects. And but sometimes there is also the market can be not as big as it was expected, for example. And it's eventually eventually it becomes a much smaller opportunity than it was. But I think the main idea is that it's the building a business is something that is a substantial part of somebody's life, right? And it takes a lot of energy and efforts and etc. And sometimes people just feel like they want to stop at some point, when they feel comfortable, and they don't want to be challenged by other aspects. And that's it, I think. There is no I don't think that there is some kind of other reasons for that, to be honest with you. Yeah. I hope I tried to answer your question. I mean, but at that time also people, because most of the companies that we invest in, they are founder-led companies. So it's really very personal usually. The company is very personal. It's a part of the, it's a part of, I don't know, a part of life, part of everything that, part of personality, I would even can say in a sense, because it's a lot of efforts is devoted by this team, by this particular person to the company, or this team to the company. And so at some point they just stop. Of course there are other challenges, but I think mindset is then the idea. That's the thing.
Thank you. It's a pity that we have only 50 minutes to share stories from our speakers, and we have to wrap up. But thank you for sharing, for being sincere, open, and insightful, and thank you for supporting actually Ukrainian and Eastern European ecosystems. I mean, thanks for Vlad actually for opening Ukrainian cards. I mean, without all those difficulties, and helping Ukrainians. And thanks, Maria, for keep investing in the region. I mean, it means a lot, especially from the people who are abroad, who left the country but still supportive. It really means a lot.
Yeah, we are actually continuing to consider and invest in Ukrainian founders and Ukrainian companies, and
EBRD probably also one of the largest in general, like investor at this time, last and this year, like we are investing over 3 billion in the country. So we are big supporters of Ukraine in general, despite all the challenges that are coming with it.
Thanks. Hope you will triple the amount.
Thanks for having me as well. And yeah, on the topic of Ukraine, I think we probably will do more as well. It's a big pity what's happening there, and I mean, it's at the same time, it's the main thing again, like in this point, what we discussed a lot: resilience, making sure to persist through this period, and I think there are big opportunities there.
Thank you. So let's finish up.